Dice Tower Tonight, episode 95.
Marble Madness.
Nice. Welcome to Dice Tower Tonight, a video cast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On tonight's show, let's get the ball rolling as we talk about games that use marbles. Also, Crystal has something for me in the chat to play. We run through some titles we've played lately, and we answer questions from the audience live. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the Team Galactic to my O'Rangers, it's Crystal Dax.
Oh, if you want to talk Jelly's marble runs, we can talk Jelly's marble runs. I have been a huge fan for a very long time, and yes, I'm down for all of the teams. It's delightful.
It is a lot of fun. My son, my eldest, the 13-year-old, is a big fan of watching those and has followed the whole thing. In fact, he got so inspired by those races that he made his own tracks in the house and was keeping his own statistics and timing everything. And he did a curling event and all sorts of stuff. It was fantastic. None of it made to YouTube. It's just, pictures and notebook scribblings. But he had a lot of fun.
I mean, that's really cool. And yeah, like some of the races are less, like there's the ones where they're literally just going down a beach, like in the sand in like a big trough. But the ones I like are when they do what used to be called the Marble Olympics and like the underwater events and the complexity, like the half pipe, all of the creative ways that this guy has come up with to have marbles compete against one another is fascinating. So yeah, if people have never seen, I know Tom is doing his marble streams on the channel here, and those are great. Do not get me wrong, but they do not compare to Jelly's marble runs, at least not yet.
Yes. I love the style of the color commentating. Just this, it's this very calm, and so he's fallen out of the water, and oh wow, look at that. That's amazing how he could possibly pull ahead. Look, he's doing it. And of course, the guy knows everything that's going to happen because they filmed it, 2 months ago.
Right. The commentary comes later, but yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
Right before we went live, I told you, Eric, that I was going to say something after we went live. And that is, you and I were just giggling about something. And I would like to state right here and now that I want to do a live episode of Dice Tower Tonight at one of the conventions that you and I are both at in the near-ish future.
Yeah.
Tom loves to do live shows. I want to do a live Dice Tower Tonight, not just with you and I standing in front of a laptop, but like with an audience. I want to do a Dice Tower Tonight live show, and I'm stating that now. I'm willing it into existence.
I mean, you do have a certain amount of pull with the organization team of Dice Tower West.
I mean, that is true. I do, as a matter of fact. So I bet I could make that happen for us.
We might be able to get maybe a better internet connection than standing in front of a laptop trying to do a stream.
Although, admittedly, those, like, fly by the seat of our pants things are also quite fun, especially, like, Z and Roy popping in from behind and all of that. So.
There's nothing that says they can't do that with a more structured format either.
That's very true. I guess we should introduce ourselves. Hello, I'm Crystal Dax.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know I definitely need this right now. It's been a very tough couple of weeks at work. I've been doing a very dense history text. Usually I get to be like elves and dragons and tell amazing stories, but right now I'm doing history. And it's very dense and sometimes depressing. So I'm excited to be with you and get to be a little silly and have some fun tonight.
I am right there with you. My boss is leaving my company, and so I'm stressed out to the max right now, as tomorrow is his last day. So lots of new responsibilities for me in the short term. But for now, let's talk about some board games.
We should. Who gets to go first today?
You get to go first today, Eric.
I get to go first today. I'm going to talk about a game I just got to play a couple of rounds of just after dinner tonight, and that is The Initiative.
Ooh.
This is a new one from Corey Konecka, and it's from a new design studio, it's just a logo here on the front. It's like unknown. I don't want to flip the box over. I'll get back to you on the name of the publisher. But it's a new publisher that Konecka is heading up. The Initiative is a cooperative puzzle game for 1 to 4 players. And it's scenario-based. So you've got this nice thick rule book. That's not really a rule book. It's actually a comic book with scenario intros. And the story is that your game group, has found a game at a garage sale, and you start playing it. The game is called The Key. So it's a game within a game. It's like Inception, the game. So you pick a scenario, you read the comic book, it introduces what's going on, and then you're going to pull one of these mission cards. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything. There are spoilers in this game. You can only play each of the missions once. Once you know the solution, you can't really play it again with the same group. But I'm not going to show you anything that would break anything. So you get this card that's a mission card that shows you how to set up the board. So you've got, go away, rulebook. You've got this nice, floor plan. It's a double-sided maps, and they'll give you little walls that you can put in the way to close off rooms. So there's lots of different ways for the whole thing to get laid out. And part of what you're laying out are these little file tokens. These are what you're looking for. They're going to be spread out around the board, and there are different actions that are going to let you discover these tokens. And the tokens relate to this like Wheel of Fortune board. A code phrase that you need to figure out in order to win the scenario. So in order to complete this one, I'd have to figure out what this code phrase is. This one, at least, is a very simple cipher. So those symbols are what is on the other side of those clue tokens. So you might find one of these clue tokens that has this symbol on it, and that matches to one or more of the letters that are behind the board. You might also find one that doesn't go on the board. That's nothing. You toss it away. You might also find traps. You might find security cameras that are going to cause you to lose cards if you stay in that room. You might reveal something that prevents you from doing certain actions. And these are the things that you do to, complete the actions of the game. You've got a big old deck of cards in different suits and different numbers, and you're going to play these on action spaces. So Intel lets you look at face-down tokens on the board. Run lets you move around the board. That's pretty simple. Gather lets you pick up those tokens, the ones that are going to solve the puzzle. And then there is a regroup action. You need to be able to regroup to take cards back off of these action spaces because you can only play them in not numerical order, but ascending order. So if I play a 2 on the run space, you have to play something higher than a 2 to do the run action again. So as a team, you have to coordinate with your group. Don't put down a 9 or a 10 on an action space that other people need to use because you're going to have to use the regroup action to get those cards off. Also, if an action gets locked by one of those tokens, you have to regroup to get it. But you can never reset the regroup. You can't regroup the regroup. So if you play a 12 on your regroup, you're never going to regroup again. There's also these time cards that get shuffled in after you go through the deck once. And if too many of these show up on the second run through, you lose. So you have to solve the puzzle before then. And if you solve it, you win. If you don't, you lose. Either way, you move on to the next scenario. And that's the initiative. It's actually, you'll notice, it's the redacted initiative. I don't know what that means yet, but I think that's part of the plot of the game.
Okay.
So far, so good. I'm enjoying it. It's very quick. The first 2 missions, at least, are very straightforward and simple. There's not a whole lot of danger going on. There's a lot more tokens and movers than there are player roles, so I know there's going to be, nasty bad guys soon. Not yet in the first couple of missions. But there's a certain overarching extra story that relates to the kids playing this game that you're playing. And so there's a weird relationship of who knows what's going on and what do they know about the kids. And I'm getting into all of that. And it's very cool to explore. So I'm looking forward to folding my kids in. It's very easy to bring other players in or out to play different characters. So far, so good with The Initiative by Corey Konecka.
Nice. It was funny when you very first started describing it about how you find this game in a thrift store. You're playing a game about finding a game in a thrift store. It reminded me of, I saw a movie. I think it was only a couple of years ago that I watched it. It's an older movie, but it's basically like if Nightmare or Atmosphere, the board game, came to life, kind
good.
of. Like these people, they find a board game in a creepy store, and these people take it home, and then like really creepy. It's a horror movie where creepy stuff starts happening based on a board game. It's not a good movie. If I can find the name of it, I'll mention it later, or maybe somebody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. But it was actually surprisingly fun to watch, even though it was not a good movie.
The publisher, I just lifted up the box, is called Unexpected Games. That's the new group.
So it was an unexpected publisher.
Yes.
Okay.
How about you, Crystal?
Well, I recently, I've mentioned this during our streams before, but I have been playing escape room style games during my Tuesday night Twitch streams for the past couple of months. And I recently got a Kickstarter in the mail that I had backed for a couple of puzzle boxes from ID Venture games. That's ID and then Venture, like Adventure, but ID Venture. And they had a Kickstarter campaign for their newest puzzle box, and I added on one of their older puzzle boxes. And so I now have both of them. So the new one that just came out as a result of the Kickstarter is Davy Jones's Locker. It is basically an escape room style game in the form of a box. I mean, puzzle boxes have existed longer than escape rooms have, so that's kind of a weird way to compare it. But as far as board gamers are concerned, it's the type of physical puzzles that you would expect to see in an escape room game. But instead of escaping from something, you are trying to get into the box. There will be no spoilers in anything I'm showing you, so do not worry about that. But you literally just start off with a wooden box, which in this case, I have to hold it together because I have not completely reassembled this one yet. There are a lot of moving pieces and parts, things that come out or slide around, so to speak. Like there's a sliding puzzle on the back of this one. I also have the Schrodinger's cat box, which is this one, which is, there's some pieces missing from this one as well, but like there's lots of moving parts and pieces, and you literally just break into the box by solving puzzles. The company has a really robust hint system on their website. I would say of all of the escape room style games I've played, the best hint system, because the hints are really gentle. Like you need to look at X. And then if you click to the next hint, you need to manipulate X. And like, it really helps you. And it was nice because while I was playing through these, I was kind of doubting some of the things I was doing. And I just wanted confirmation, because you don't ever have to brute force these things open. And sometimes things are just a little bit fiddly, obviously, in a wooden box. And so I was able to use their hint system to confirm the things that I was doing were correct, so I wouldn't accidentally break it. It's not super delicate, so I wasn't super worried, but I just, I didn't want to strong arm the box open. Yeah. They are themed. The Schrodinger's cat one has Schrodinger's cat trapped in it, and you are trying to rescue the cat. And then Davy Jones's Locker, Davy Jones locks away the souls of pirates that have fallen into the deep, and you are trying to be the first person to open one of his mysterious boxes that is found in a sunken ship. I will obviously not be discussing much because of spoilers, but I will say the physicality of these boxes is incredibly satisfying to mess around with. And I personally, while I struggled with a couple of the puzzles, for the most part, these puzzles were not too easy and not too difficult. And everybody's brains work differently. So some people are going to find a puzzle really easy. Some people will find that same puzzle really hard. Whatever style of puzzles they've come up with here worked really well for me, in that they were difficult, but not so difficult that they were frustrating. And that when I was able to solve them on my own, it felt really satisfying. The one thing that I had the most trouble with between the two boxes was this sliding puzzle. Again, I won't say how I knew how to solve it. But honestly, it wasn't the solution that was the issue. It was, I'm just bad at sliding puzzles. These are the things you had when you were a kid, where you're trying to make certain things that go into certain places, and I was just bad at that.
So like you knew what position you needed to go in, you just didn't know how to get it there.
Exactly. I knew exactly where every single piece needed to be, and it was just a matter of actually manipulating the pieces to get them there. But I was able to do it on my own, and that was the very first puzzle as part of this box, and so I was like, oh man, this is going to be rough, but it was not too bad. I believe you can purchase these directly from their website, although most of their website is in German. They have some English pages in there for both the hint system and the shop, but I'm not 100% sure of the availability of these here in the US. I will say I highly recommend them. If you enjoy puzzles, these are great. And I did them solo on my Twitch stream with the chat kind of suggesting things as I went. But I think you could do this with, 2 or 3 people easily. More than that, and I feel like it would get a little less interesting just because while these boxes, this one separates to some degree as you figure it out, you only have one thing to solve at a time. Yeah. So more people would just be more brain power. It would not really help with the puzzle solving per se.
It's more like when you get stuck, you can hand it off to somebody. You hold it for a little bit.
Yeah. Or like, there were a couple of instances where I was like, okay, I know I need to manipulate this and this and this, and it might have been easier with more hands, like rather than me. All of it was possible as a single person, but I really enjoyed these quite a bit. I'm really glad I backed the Kickstarter. I actually have a couple other things I got from their Kickstarter, including a cryptics, which I get to assemble myself. It didn't come assembled. I have all the wooden pieces to assemble my very own cryptics. So nice. We'll see when I actually get around to doing that. But yeah, the clue boxes from ID Venture, both Schrodinger's Cat and Davy Jones's Locker, I would highly recommend. I really, really enjoyed them.
Do you remember how much they were in the Kickstarter?
That is an excellent question. I will actually just look on their website and see what the prices are. So Davy Jones's Locker is listed for 35 euros. Okay. I'm going to assume that the Schrodinger's Cat one will be either similar or maybe a little bit less since it is their older clue box. Yeah. So they're not crazy expensive, but also not ridiculously cheap. They are very well produced though, and you can reset them. So I think that's a big, it has instructions on the website for how to reset them. Excuse me, and I will be passing these off to a friend of mine after I do that. And I don't think it'll be too difficult to reassemble either of them based on how they came apart to begin with.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hear you've got something you're excited to try as far as playing a game with the chat this evening.
Yeah, we're going to play something that we've kind of done in the past. You have had us play the game Malarkey.
Yes.
On past shows. And a similar game to Malarkey is Balderdash. And I figured since our theme tonight is marbles, Balderdash would be a good game to play.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's a connection I didn't even think of.
That was I was trying to think of marble-themed things that we could do game-wise. And while I do have some interesting games that involve marbles that we're going to talk about later, none of them you would have been able to play with me through the internet. Okay. So we are going to play Balderdash, but I did not solicit answers from the Board Game Geek Guild in advance, Eric. The chat is going to be providing all of the lies right here live while we play. Okay. And we're just going to see how many you can get right. So
I need to hide chat for sure.
So yes, you're going to need to hide the chat, but that is the only thing you will need to hide.
Okay.
I'm going to be reading the prompts out loud, and it won't really matter if you hear them in advance or not. So chat, for those of you who are not familiar with Balderdash, it is a game where you are given a prompt of some kind, and you are going to want to come up with a believable lie to that prompt. So as an example, I will grab a card that we're not going to use during today's game. There's a bunch of different categories. We'll be going through a few of them. But for instance, in the peculiar people category, this card lists Dan Goodwin. And now, in theory, you don't have to do this one, chat. Don't worry about this one. This is an example. What you would do right now is you would write down why Dan Goodwin is a notable person for some reason. You would make it up because you don't know who Dan Goodwin is. Who does? I don't know. And then at the end, I'm going to read off some of your fake answers along with the correct answer. And Eric is going to try and guess what the actual correct answer is. In this instance, for Dan Goodwin was a man who climbed up the Sears Tower in Chicago using suction cups.
Oh, I remember that.
He's a peculiar person, that's for sure. But I don't think most people would remember him by name, probably, and that is kind of the point. The other categories, there are word definitions, acronyms, movies, and laughable laws. The laws tend to be some of my favorites, so we're definitely going to be doing a couple of those. So, chat, I'm going to be picking answers from you all kind of at random. To make things fair, I'm going to try and pick answers from different people when I can, but I will apologize in advance. You know, I'm going to see a bunch of stuff and just kind of have to pick on the fly, things that I think will fool Eric. So put your best stuff in the chat and we will go for it. So here's your first prompt, chat. And you're going to come up with a fake answer to this. So we are going to do a laughable law first. In Long Beach, California, it is illegal for anyone to curse while blank. So in Long Beach, California, it's illegal for anyone to curse while, and you just finish that sentence. You don't have to type out the beginning part of it. You can just type out the end. Type in all caps if you can, just because it will be easier for me to see your responses in comparison to just regular chat banter. But we are trying to fool Eric with fake answers that would answer that prompt. So I want to know, in Long Beach, California, when is it illegal for anybody to curse? And I know some of you, I'll take those answers that are not in all caps because I said it late. So I will grab those. Oh, you look at you all. You retyped it in all caps. You're so sweet. I was going to take them, I promise, because I knew that was my bad.
There are rules that must be followed.
I know there are. And I will admit, Eric, I don't think you would really be able to tell, but try not to look too closely at my eyes because obviously I will be looking at the chat and or the card.
I was just thinking of that. I need to look away when you're...
I mean, yeah, as long as you're not paying too close of attention, I think we should be okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 4 answers from the chat, and we'll do a total of 5 then that you have to pick from.
Okay.
So I'm going to start picking some answers. All right. Eric, in Long Beach, California, it is illegal for anyone to curse while playing miniature golf, crossing the street, playing skee-ball, driving a taxi, or surfing. And I just realized that when I pick things at random, it'll be very difficult for me to then repeat those things in the exact same order. So I hope you got some of that.
I mean, when I first heard it, I was thinking surfing was the answer. But that seems like the obvious answer. I really like skee-ball. I'm going to guess while playing skee-ball, you are not allowed to curse.
Well, then we definitely have to give some points to Gator Dave for coming up with that answer to fool you. I will admit, I was incredibly sneaky, Eric, and I put the correct answer right up top because I knew most people would not assume that is the case, and that is you are not allowed to curse in Long Beach, California. It's illegal to curse while playing miniature golf, which is fascinating.
That is fascinating.
I'm sure the chat was probably like, who typed that in? Nobody typed that answer. All right, so that's 1 for chat, 0 for Eric. Let's see if Eric can best the chat in this next one. All right, we're going to incredible initials, which is the acronyms. So chat, I'm going to give you an acronym, and you tell me what it stands for. Obviously, not what it really stands for. All right, so the letters that you are going to be completing the acronym for are E, W, C, C. E, W, C, C. So 4 letters, E, W, C, C. That is the acronym that you all are going to be trying to solve.
I should say that acronyms are one of the banes of my existence in my job, because I will often come across an acronym or an initialism, and I'm faced with the decision of, how do I say this? And sometimes it's very obvious. If it spells out an obvious word, then okay, it's a word. But sometimes acronyms don't spell out a word, but they're pronounced like a word. And it's very hard to research that unless you find a YouTube video where somebody's like, this acronym pronounced Gablunga is, it's tricky sometimes to figure that out.
Absolutely. And Gator Dave is a little bit upset that he has to share his point with the entire chat. But Gator Dave, it's your point in your heart. Don't worry. All right, we've already got a few answers coming in. And I'm going to attempt to kind of give myself some notes as to what I say out loud so that way I can repeat them, because especially for this one, it may be a little bit difficult. So we're going to do...
the letters again are EWCC, is that correct?
EWCC, okay. Yes, absolutely. Okay. And I'm going to make some tiny notes for myself. And okay. All right, here we go. Your options are, if I can actually get everything pulled back up so I can see it, because the chat keeps scrolling.
They're all very prolific.
Sure. I know, right? Okay. We've got Electrical Workers Contractor Coalition, Early Warning Communication Center, Evanston Waterworks Community Co-op, Elvis We Care Campaign, and East Wyoming Community College.
Ooh.
So I can repeat those for you. I've got the means to do that now for myself.
Yep.
So we've got Electrical Workers Contractor Coalition, Early Warning Communication Center, Evanston Waterworks Community Co-op, Elvis We Care Campaign, and East Wyoming Community College.
I mean, there's nothing that says it isn't East Wyoming Community College, but I'm sort of going away from the two specific ones. I really like the early warning system. I'm going to go with early warning as the answer.
All right, so early warning command center gets a point to Todd in the chat for fooling you, because the correct answer, Eric, was Elvis We Care Campaign.
No!
It was the one that made you laugh.
No!
So, good job, Todd, for getting chat another point.
It's like Elvis : We Care Campaign?
Yes, a comma, actually, on the card, but...
So they're
yes.
appealing to Elvis. Elvis, we care!
I mean, I'm not quite sure. Now I want to Google it. Somebody in chat should Google Elvis We Care Campaign and see what the heck that is.
That's why he hasn't come back, is he doesn't know that people care.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to a peculiar person, shall we, Eric?
Oh, sure.
All right, so the peculiar person in question here that, chat, you are going to want to tell me why they are well-known or famous, is Nat Perrin. And again, no Googling, no cheating. We don't want the correct answer, y'all. We want a fake good answer. So Nat, N-A-T, Perrin, P-E-R-R-I-N. Nat Perrin.
I have no idea. I don't know Nat.
I did not know Nat either before reading the back of the card.
Lately.
And just so you are aware, chat, I may change the wording or style of your answers just to make sure that everything kind of matches and flows to some degree. But I am going to write them down again, which seemed to work reasonably well last time.
Sometimes it's tricky to get your fake answer to fit the syntax of the real answers.
Yes, and I think the people I play with generally appreciate that, like, we kind of try and modify things to make sure that that isn't the reason somebody gets the answer right, you know, because that's not fun. Okay, we've got some answers in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so...
I mean, the crystal writing music.
I know, right? Okay, I've got my 5 answers.
Okay.
So here we go, Eric. So Nat Perrin, creator of Worcestershire sauce, first winner of the Nathan's hot dog eating competition, producer of the Addams Family, who voiced Cousin It, creator of an app that creates apps, or first person to swim the English Channel.
Ooh.
So we've got creator of Worcestershire sauce, first winner of Nathan's hot dog eating competition, Addams Family producer who voiced Cousin It, created an app that creates apps, or first person to swim the English Channel.
I mean, I really like the Addams Family one because of that extra little bit about Cousin It. That seems strong, but I'm wondering if somebody has done that because they know I would pick it. I'm going to go with the English Channel.
English Channel. Well, then we are definitely going to be giving a point to Then 8 Mac in the chat. And your first instinct was almost correct, Eric, because it is in fact an Addams Family producer who voiced Cousin It.
Should have gone with the instinct.
That is 3 for chat now. So we'll do 5 of these. I'll do 2 more, and we'll see if you can get the chat one of these times. I mean, yeah, this is a very difficult game, especially when we have, I mean, not to toot chat's horn, so to speak, but they are very clever. They really are. So,
chat
and we know this.
Yes.
So a game like this is going to be difficult because of how clever they are. Oh gosh, we're not doing that one. There's a weird word on this one that we're not gonna.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna go back to a laughable law, Eric. Okay. In Warsaw, Indiana, it is illegal to watch what? In Warsaw, Indiana, it is illegal to watch blank. Hawkskull in the chat said, toot toot, because I was tooting their horn. Hornist said, we fake it until we make it.
To watch something.
Yeah, to watch something. It's illegal in Warsaw, Indiana to watch something. And what that thing is, Chad is going to tell us.
The Golden Girls.
I mean, it could be. You never know. I mean, you do know in a few minutes when I tell you the answer, but I'll say it's not the Golden Girls. Okay. How about that? That would, if you had just randomly thrown out the correct answer, I probably would have lost my mind and not been able to hold it. Like, because I don't know what I would have done if that were the, All right. Let me do my little note-taking game just so I can make sure I repeat things well.
I mean, there's so many options. It could be anything.
I mean, it really could.
It's bound to be something scandalous. But what is scandalous in Warsaw, Indiana?
I mean, that's a good question, actually.
Illegal to watch blank.
Huh. And okay. All right, Eric, I've got your answers for you.
All righty.
In Warsaw, Indiana, it is illegal to watch the movie The Stepford Wives, Footloose on Sundays, ducks mating, fireworks, or a tornado.
Ooh.
So that was the movie The Stepford Wives, Footloose on Sundays, ducks mating, fireworks, or a tornado?
Either someone in chat is really clever or tornado is the right answer. So I'm going to go with tornado. I really like that answer.
I really like that answer as well, especially because it is not the correct answer,
Arg!
Eric. Travis M in the chat is going to get a point for chat there, because the correct answer was, in fact, the movie The Stepford Wives. I also want to know backstory on this. Anytime I play Balderdash, I'm always like, but why? Like, why is it illegal to watch The Stepford Wives in Warsaw, Indiana? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure you could probably Google that and find that out too.
I did recently learn, this is not related to Balderdash, but I did recently learn that the state vegetable of Oklahoma is the watermelon. And that is an odd fact, considering watermelons are not vegetables. But that is true. It is the state vegetable of Oklahoma, the watermelon.
Sure. Why not?
Take that for what it's worth. Y'all didn't know you were going to learn some stuff tonight, did you, chat?
Bonus trivia.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to go back to incredible initials for our last one. So we've got another acronym for you all. 3 letters this time. R-I-O. R-I-O. Rio.
It's Rio.
So, Rio. What could Rio stand for?
It's a casino in Vegas?
I mean, that is true. I love the Rio. The Rio is great. I spent a lot of time at the Rio back when I worked in the poker industry because the World Series of Poker is held there in the convention center. All right, let's see here. I have to make sure I don't write these down in order, so that way, in case you can kind of figure out when I'm trying to suss out an answer and when I'm not, like, I don't write them down 1 through 5, because I know that you would never cheat intentionally, but sometimes you can just glean information, so.
I've been trying, and it's still not working. Whatever I've been gleaning has been the wrong thing on this particular game.
That's true.
R-I-O. I know what ROI is.
Oh yeah, return on investment.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's not return investment on.
Right, that would be less interesting, I would say, in general.
Return investment on. It's like a call to action.
And
Rockstar Input Omega.
Yep, that's it. You nailed it, Eric.
Woohoo!
Totally got it.
Gotta finish strong.
Okay. Here we go, Eric. Here are your 5 possible answers for what RIO stands for. Richmond Initiative for Obesity, Reliable Input-Output, Random Information Organizer, Retirement Information Office, or Registry of Italian Oddities. So, Richmond Initiative for Obesity, Reliable Input-Output, Random Information Organizer, Retirement Information Office, or Registry of Italian Oddities.
All of these sound totally plausible.
Yep, they really do.
I like reliable input-output.
You know what's funny is I thought you might say that, Eric, and that means
That's why you wrote it down.
We need to give some points to David Briel in the chat for that answer because it's great. And in fact, once again, the answer that made you laugh, Eric, is the correct one. That is the Registry of Italian Oddities.
Well, now I know how to play this game.
Apparently, whichever answer makes you giggle, because honestly, Chad is doing a really good job of coming up with this is I mean this is a compliment, like boring answers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like very
Believable
these seem
ones.
like real legitimate things. There were some I don't know if you'll want to scroll through the chat later, but we did have some like really interesting otters from Chris Yee. Somebody else said really important otter. So apparently chat likes otters a lot.
Oh man, I just flipped over to the chat and it's flying through everything. It's just
Oh
scrolling
no!
and scrolling and scrolling.
So, chat, you all were 5 for 5 tonight. Excellent job. I hope that you all enjoyed getting to use your creativity a little bit for tonight's game. And good job stumping Eric.
Oh yeah, it's not as difficult as it seems.
I mean, I think we're all there. When it comes to this game, every time I play Balderdash in person, I am always blown away by how creative everybody is. And there's always one person who's like, oh, I'm going to be bad at this game. And they will come up with the most brilliant answers to things. And it just is so much fun. So that was Balderdash. Thanks for playing, chat.
Good job.
Yeah. So, Eric, should we hop into our main discussion topic for the evening?
Oh, we should. We're talking about marbles and games that use them. And at first I was only thinking of a couple, but as we explored, there are lots of games that use the small, humble marble in some way. And I sort of started to categorize how they are used. There's different groupings of games that use marbles. And I don't know if you want to approach it like that. When you think of use a marble in a game, what is a usage that you think of right away?
I mean, for me, the games that came to mind immediately, the games that involve marbles generally have some element of chaos or randomness or franticness. And I think when most people think of random, like the word random in relation to a board game, I think more people are going to think about dice, like the randomization of numbers. But marbles allow for a different kind of randomness. And I think that especially a lot of older games and kids games leveraged that randomness to great success throughout the past few decades.
Yeah, I think as a randomizer, and especially for our hobby games, marbles get used a lot in stuff like some of the first ones I pulled were gizmos that uses a hopper where you throw in all the marbles and they come out in a single row and you can choose from that row. And then you've got Potion Explosion, where you have not just one row, but what is it, 4? 5? 5.
I think 5. Yeah, 5.
5 different rows. We just played this weekend. This was what Steph wanted to play for Mother's Day. I got to play with the plastic hopper that came with the expansion, which is kind of cool to fool around with. The new expansion has a 6th player, and you can play with 2 hoppers if you want. That's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Other random ones. Incognito is a game that I've never played, but it has.
I have played Incognito.
Okay, it has like a marble, a piece with a marble hopper that randomizes an order, correct?
Yeah, so it has a creepy looking figure that has marbles inside of it, and you kind of shake that device, and then whatever 3 marbles become visible dictate how you are allowed to move on your turn. So it's interesting because unlike an old-fashioned roll and move game where you roll and you just move that many spaces, the colors dictate which spaces on the board you can move to. So it's still random but strategic in a way that a lot of other random movement games don't have. Incognito is a game that I'm horrible at, but it's very fun.
A similar function shows up in Starfarers of Catan, the space version of Catan. You've got like a shaker rocket ship, and slamming that down reveals what order I think players get to go in for a particular round. In fact, Chris Yee just said Starship Catan, or Starfarers, I guess.
Well, David Breel in the chat mentioned a game that I happen to pull off of my shelf, which I have to be a little careful with because it's real old, and that is the McDonald's game. Y'all, I will sing this game's praises until my board gaming days are done. And what's interesting about this is the marbles are not an element of randomization, so to speak. But as you are constructing orders at the drive-thru, once you go to McDonald's, the players, when they think they've got the order correct, throw their personal marble into a little funnel. So it's interesting because there's a speed element to the game in assembling the orders. And when you throw those marbles in, they may spin around that funnel a little bit. And so if two people throw their marbles in at the same time, you just have to wait and see which one goes down the clear tube first. Yeah. And it adds to the tension of the game in a really interesting way. Y'all, if you can find a copy of this game on eBay or elsewhere, get it. It's so much fun, and I'm not even kidding. I love the McDonald's game.
There's almost a little bit of a dexterity element to it as you toss the marble into the hopper, which brings me to my other category, dexterity games. There's tons of just plain old, because marbles have that random aspect. They sort of emulate billiard balls. They see. Yes, I saw it. You posted on Instagram and Twitter earlier with these giant boxes. You've got Bonk there. You've got, which is sort of like Crossfire. Bonk is sort of the bespoke version of Crossfire. Flask, the hockey-like game with the magnetic pieces. Fireball Island, not quite dexterity. That's more of a randomization element, actually. When that thing goes off, those marbles can go in all sorts of wacky ways and knock people out. One that I don't think a lot of people have seen is this Dreimagier-Spiel game called The Endless River. It uses... Come here, you. So the board is full of marbles. Those are all marbles. And the pieces sit on the board, and you slide the board around the table, rubbing the pieces around, and it moves the guy along the river, and you're trying to get the wizards to reach certain points in the river by moving the board across the table in weird ways, and you have to sort of do it backwards from what you think in order to get the guy in the boat to go where you want him to go.
That's fascinating. Marbles are such an interesting component. And fun fact, when I was doing research for this episode, I was looking on Board Game Geek, and there is a way to search via like components, and there is a marbles category. And so I looked, and there were a lot of games on there that I was familiar with, including kids games that lots of people played when they were young, like Mousetrap or Hungry Hungry Hippos or Crossfire that you mentioned. But there was a game on there that I had never heard of before that I actually went and immediately ordered off of eBay.
Okay.
And it's called Avalanche. And it kind of reminds me of Drop It in a way, where you're dropping pieces down into like a clear tower, so to speak, but they're marbles, and there's these little swinging pendulum-like things inside the device, and the marbles will sometimes get stuck in those, and you're trying to predict, I think, or get your marbles down to the bottom, and so you have to know where to drop them to get them to not get stuck. And it was relatively cheap on eBay, and so I just bought myself a copy because I was like, this seems like a fun con game, kind of like Drop It. Like, it's got good table presence. It'll make a little bit of noise probably because of the marbles. So I just bought myself a copy of a new game today because of this episode.
One of the more elaborate marble games is this one called Magician's Kitchen, and you've got this piece that has sort of a little cutout on it, so it will tip forward. And there are magnets hidden in the board that you randomize at the beginning of the game. And so you push the guy around, and he's holding a marble. And you're trying to get him to land up, and then he hit the marble, or hit the magnet, and he tips forward and drops the marble. And so you're trying to avoid those spaces and get him to drop off the marble in specific places. A very intricate dexterity game. In fact, to win the game, you have to drop a big marble in this center, which causes the flames to shoot up. It's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Kitchen. I have a game that doesn't use marbles that does very similar things called Bermuda Pirates. from Foxmind Games, and I really enjoy it. It's silly but really fun. Chrissy in the chat, I have to help him out. He said nobody has said Kerplunk yet, and it's causing him anguish. So Kerplunk definitely involves marbles, and I played a lot of Kerplunk when I was a kid. Man, when you get down to in Kerplunk to that last stick, and you know that, like, if you pull it, you're most likely going to drop the rest of the marbles, but maybe there's a tiny chance that they'll hang on.
Yeah.
I have actually played Kerplunk in recent years. At one point at a board game cafe, we grabbed it off the shelf just to, be like, oh, we played this as kids. Let's see if it holds up. And I will say it doesn't really, but it's a fun activity. Honestly, the reason it doesn't hold up is because the setup it takes a lot of time to get all those sticks through all those little holes. If the setup was more instantaneous, I think it would actually hold up pretty well. But instead, I would rather play a game like Go Cuckoo if I'm going to play with sticks and things on top of sticks.
Joseph mentions Tower of Madness, which is the sort of gamer's Kerplunk with Cthulhu aspects and madness and specialized marbles and stuff like that.
Oh, Jeffrey Putnam, you bring up an interesting point. I don't know what that's the wrong thing to say, but you really like Battle Dome, you say? You really like 4-player pinball in board game form, where y'all the microphone, it's gonna get loud.
She's been so excited about this, folks.
Hold on. I mean, it takes a while to set this dang thing up. I'm just gonna put a few of the marbles up here.
Wow.
But yeah, we're gonna turn this on.
Are we? Ah!
Okay, that's loud. It's really loud. We're gonna yeah. This is Battle Dome. It's literally 4-player pinball in the form of a board game. You've got pinball flippers on all 4 sides, and you are just trying to not get them into your little collection area, and it is so much fun. I really, really like Battle Dome. I mean, come on, I set this whole thing up. It's got a net to protect the marbles from falling out. It is great, and it gave me an excuse to get it out, which means I'm leaving this set up for my next game day because I have vaccinated friends now, and we're gonna play this.
All right. Well, you've got your large item. I've got my large item. Here is my Canadian curling board, big and heavy, that uses a marble ball-bearing curling stone that slides along, and you're aiming for the house. One disappointing aspect, though, I just pulled this out of its box for the first time since the move, and I don't know if you can tell, the sticker has started to bubble up. And there are now speed bumps and moguls on my curling sheet. I don't know yet what I'm going to have to do. I think the adhesive may have melted, so I might have to get a heat gun or something and try and flatten it out. I don't know yet, but it's like my Canadian pride and joy, and it's broken.
Eric, I know that you were at Essen here a couple of years ago when a particular game got released that then got added to the Dice Tower library that involved marbles. And I bet you already know what I'm talking about.
This is the one that no one ever wants to play anymore because...
No, it's literally the least pandemic-friendly game in existence. Like, even worse than Rampage in my estimation.
Yes.
But I will say... Marble bobsleigh is very, very fun, and in a post-pandemic world, I do hope to play it again at some point. Maybe not at a convention, but maybe at home. It's literally 4 marbles competing to get to the middle of a gigantic square board down some tracks first, and the way your marbles move is by you blowing on them.
Yeah.
And so
well, I mean, there's gravity. Gravity starts it, but you can make it move faster by blowing on it. And if you blow too hard, it's going to jump the track and not go where it's supposed to go.
I wonder if Tom has actually removed it from the Dice Tower library. I know he just updated the Dice Tower library list. I would be curious to know whether he has removed that game. I would think he probably will if he hasn't already, just because, I mean, Con Crud was already a thing.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, but now that seems like maybe not the most responsible game to play at a convention. It is very fun, though.
It is fun, but it comes in one of the largest boxes I've ever seen for a small dexterity game like that.
What is it with marble games and large boxes?
I think because they're often made of plastic, and so they're just bulkier. In order to get the gravity to work, you have to
Yeah.
have a solid track piece, and so you can't really have anything fold. It's got to be solid pieces that snap together, and so you end up with large boxes. Chris
Absolutely.
Yee says we have Marble Bobsleigh in the office. I guess they're playing it tomorrow. Roy Kennedy and Chris Yee are both in the chat, and they're ready to play Marble Bobsleigh. So that means it is still in the library.
Okay. Still in the library for now.
Yes.
I mean, yes. So let's see. I put down a couple other games. Would you consider Dimension to be a marble game? It technically is like, I think they're kind of like rubber balls, so to speak. Like, I don't think they're larger than what you would normally consider to be a marble, but they still feel kind of like marble.
Yeah, that goes under the category of like the form factor of a marble or a sphere just works for the type of game that it is. I was thinking there's a GIP series game. I don't remember if it's GIP or one of the others that uses large spheres as your playing piece. There's the Lorenzo Il Magnifico card game where marbles get pushed on a grid, and the one that comes out is the action you take. I haven't played it. I just have seen it operating. There's a couple of other abstracts that involve pushing marbles around. And it's not really that you're rolling them, it's just that the friction is nice and it feels good to push the marbles around, and that's why it's a marble.
Absolutely. Somebody in the chat mentioned, I don't remember the name of it, the roller coaster game that had the cardboard pieces that flopped kind of horribly.
Yes. I've totally forgotten what it was. It was a Pandasaurus release, and it was it?
A great idea that just did not work as well as anyone had hoped. There's some other more modern games, though. Dr. Eureka uses marbles. I saw that come in the chat. Horrible at that one. I'm pouring the marbles back and forth and never getting them in the correct order.
Igloo Pop is one that they're almost more beads than marbles, but I picked it because it's the sound that they're used for and not necessarily for anything else. You're not rolling them or positioning them. You are just listening to them collide with each other and trying to hear whether that's 10 marbles or 7 and trying to guess properly.
I love Igloo Pop, and it's funny because any game that involves sound would theoretically be more difficult to play at a convention, but I actually really like teaching people Igloo Pop at conventions, mostly because it is hilarious to watch the faces of people walking by as a whole bunch of people around a table are picking up these tiny igloos and shaking them next to their ears and trying to figure out, like, it's just so funny to watch. So I love bringing Igloo Pop out at a convention if people are not familiar with it. You mentioned the GIF series. There are actually a ton of abstract strategy games that utilize marbles as their playing pieces.
Chinese checkers, as someone mentioned in chat right off the bat.
Absolutely. And I'll say my favorite that I've played, I haven't played obviously very many of them because there are so many, but one I stumbled across randomly at a small convention years ago was Kulami. Spelled Kulami. It's a game with a modular board, and it's still an abstract strategy game, but you get to assemble the board kind of however you want with these wooden pieces with divots in them, and then you are placing pieces based on the placement of previous pieces and trying to gain majority in each of the different board sections. It was fascinating, and I liked it a lot more than I expected to. So if you like abstract strategy games and you're looking for something unique, I want to say it's about 10 years old at this point, but yeah, it's Kulami, and I really like that one.
Very cool. Well, I think I've covered all of my categories: dexterity games, randomization games, games that use marbles for noise, and that have the form factor. And I even, you brought up Marble Bobsleigh, which was one of the ones I wanted to make sure we mentioned.
Yep. The only one that I put on my list that it's funny, I never played it as a kid and I always wanted to, was Thin Ice. It was a game that had like some kind of a covering over this like circle, and you would put marbles onto it until the ice broke. And the ice was not a solid thing. I think it was like a sheet of something, and it would eventually cave in. I remember seeing the commercials for it when I was a kid, and I found it on Board Game Geek when I was searching for this list, and I was like, I remember that game, and I've never gotten to play it.
It's just like wet paper, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know if it was like made of rubber or some kind of a thin plastic or something like that. But I very specifically remember looking in the commercials and being like, how does that work? How does, 3 not fall through, but 7 do, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how the mechanisms work, but I always wanted to play it and never got to.
Haylox mentions coconuts, which aren't quite marbles. They're little rubberized coconut-shaped things, pellets, that you're firing with monkey-shaped catapults into your opponent's cups. But that's a fun dexterity one as well.
Absolutely. The only other one, I have one more on my list that I wanted to mention, and that's the Pac-Man game.
Oh, yes!
Where you literally have a Pac-Man going around a board eating marbles, eating pellets, and then the ghosts are trying to get Pac-Man, as they would in the video game. And it's got great table presence. It looks really, really neat. I've seen some especially fancy versions of this game, and they are pretty cool to see in person.
All right. Well, that was a lot of marble games out there. It's now already 10 o'clock or 7 for Crystal. But we can stick around for a little while and answer a couple questions at least. I saw one comment about our balderdash game fly by, and it went by a while ago. It was someone from that town or near that town in Indiana that's not allowed to watch the Stepford Wives, but it's not the movie. Here we go. Embracing Our Life is their screen name. It says, they live about an hour from Warsaw, Indiana, and thought you'd get a kick out of the research. It's only illegal to read the Stepford Wives books in schools. And they're sending you a link to see the case. But it's not the movie, it's reading the book in schools.
Okay, well, I did not make that part up. On the card, it said the movie The Stepford Wives. So maybe Balderdash had it wrong. But all right, that's cool to know. Thank you for the information. I love the random things I learned from a game of Balderdash.
Apparently there's a game, Kabuki says there's a game that's like Crossbows and Catapults, where you use marbles instead of discs to knock down plastic castle blocks.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I
right?
feel like Tom may have just played this, and I can't remember what it's called. Yeah. No, I can't remember. It was a couple episodes of the podcast ago that Tom talked about a game that I think uses marbles. That may be the one that we're talking about here.
Speaking of the podcast, obviously, I would imagine almost everybody that's going to be in the chat of the YouTube channel probably listens to the podcast, but maybe not. And Eric, I wanted to say that I had a ridiculously large podcast backlog from when I was working from home for the majority of the past year.
Yep.
And I've been slowly working my way backward in the Dice Tower podcast, specifically because I was curious about the letter-themed episodes that you all have been doing, notably Z and X, because I wanted to see how those lists shook out. I just finished listening to the X episode today, and I was very happy to see Xenoshift on the top of Tom's list, because I do agree that that is an underrated game. And also, I was blown away by the fact that XCOM came out 6 years ago. Because it feels like app games are still kind of new, and they really aren't anymore. But I thought you all did an excellent job on those episodes, and I wanted to make sure that our chat knew that if they're not listening to the Dice Tower podcast, they're missing some classic, great content from you and Tom and Mandy and Suzanne, and they should definitely check it out.
Oh, thank you very much, and I should probably return the favor. Board Game Blitz is a lot of fun to listen to, and that's every 2 weeks. Lots of great content there, and quicker podcasts than the Dice Tower. You are far more speedy than we are.
I am constantly shocked at how deep the conversations Ambi and I are able to have in such a short amount of time are. Like, I when we started it, I all kind of thought we would only be, skirting the surface of any given topic, but we've had some really deep, interesting conversations, and I'm proud of that fact.
So Dan asks, have you made an appearance as a promo in a game yet? And asking which of mine is my favorite of the promos that I've released. Well, I actually have it here. It's the Zombicide one, Eric Summoner.
It's such a good name. It's just so good. The
name is fantastic. The illustration, I'm not sure how well it's going to show up. It's very, oh, there we go. That's not bad. It's hard to tell with the plastic wrap on, but it's mint, so I'm not going to take it apart. But you can sort of, come on, Glare. The staff is a microphone. So I'm holding an old-timey microphone and summoning baddies with my voice. It's really cool. Anyway, that's my favorite.
I have not been a promo item in any games as of now. I'm not well known enough, I don't think, for that to be like people. This is not me hating on myself. I just like that there would be no desire for a Crystal promo in any games that I'm aware of. So I would be willing to be a promo, but I just don't think that there would be any reason for a publisher to do that at this point.
Yeah. Not too many questions flying by today. I guess people are just so in depth of the discussion of marbles that they don't have any other questions to ask. Oh, are there any watermelon games? Following up on the watermelon fact from earlier.
Watermelon. None that I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm sure there are games that use watermelon. I don't think there are many that are specifically about them. I'm sure there are like some fruit games that use watermelon or melons in some regard. And there might be a farming game. There's like Veggie Garden, but that's not that's going to be vegetables and not watermelon.
I mean, well, the watermelon is the state vegetable of Oklahoma, so
maybe it's an expansion.
Somebody tell a board game publisher to use that, like make a veggie game and throw watermelon in there specifically for that reason.
It's the
and then
Oklahoma
put it in the
mini expansion promo for Veggie Garden.
Gator Dave asks, any summer plans for the two of us? At least for me personally, while I am vaccinated now, I'm still kind of playing any big plans by ear. I will most likely be traveling to Missouri at some point to visit my family, who I have not seen since Thanksgiving of 2019 at this point. My mom misses me a lot, and I miss her too. And so I want to go. And my nephews, gosh, my youngest nephew was 6 months old the last time I saw him, and he turns 2 this week, actually. So I definitely want to go visit my family at some point. That's really the only thing that I definitively have on my plans, even though I haven't scheduled that trip yet.
I know I'm heading to Maine to see my parents who have both been vaccinated, so that's now a safe bubble to head into. So we'll be spending a week up in Maine over the summer, and I am hoping for maybe a trip, but nothing I can talk about yet.
Okay.
Which would be nice.
All right. Well, Eric, as always, it has been absolutely lovely hanging out with you and the chat this evening. I will say, chat, if you enjoyed tonight's episode, before you leave, if you could just click the little thumbs up button below the video to let the YouTube algorithms know that they should recommend this video to your friends who weren't able to watch live, and to make sure that you see our future episodes when they pop up in your YouTube subscription feed. We know that Dice Tower puts out a lot of amazing content, and we want to make sure that you all do not miss our shows every 2 weeks. We are here every other Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Any closing thoughts from you, Eric?
Well, we're getting very close to our episode 100. We're looking like we're going to be doing maybe a game of Palooza, maybe more than one game for an episode. So if you have a favorite, let us know, Eric at Dicetower.com or Crystal at Dicetower.com, and we'll consider putting it in that 100th episode, because that's going to be fun.
Absolutely. I would love to hear from you all. Like, Tom said this in one of the podcast episodes that I just caught up on. It might have been the X episode. He was saying that, sometimes you don't get immediate feedback on things. And while on YouTube we do get generally more feedback, we would love to hear from you all if there are any interactive games that we've played here on the show once, twice, or 100 times that you all particularly like, so we can make sure that we bring them back for the 100th episode or other episodes. We want to make sure that you all are enjoying yourselves.
Very cool.
All right. Well, until 2 weeks from now, which is when we will see you next, I am Crystal Dax.
I am Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching Dice Tower Tonight.
Thanks for watching. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. Crystal and I will see you in 2 weeks for another installment. Our show is supported by viewers like you. Thank you. Dice Tower Tonight is produced by Crystal and me, with assistance from Tom Vassell, Mike DeLisio, Roy Kennedy, Chris Yee, and Rob Siri. Taking shelter in a winter sports equipment store during an earthquake, brought to you by Under Falling Skis. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by GameNerds.com. Give us your feedback on the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek, on Facebook or Twitter, or by emailing us at crystal@dicetower.com or eric@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network. Find something new at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all of us at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. Did the dog try and play the Battle Dome game?
She did try and play the Battle Dome game, and she failed pretty spectacularly at that endeavor. So, good night, everyone.
Good night.